This is Damian Brown, convicted of murdering his girlfriend's daughter, Nitisha Lattimore, in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Have him scoot in, and if you could just stand behind me, please. I can see your faces.
No, go color me.
Judge, can you hit the panic alarm, please?
The morning started like any other, but by the end of December 2020, Brown committed an unspeakable act. He murdered Nitisha Lattimore, stabbing her fatally before placing her daughter in the Ohio River alongside Nitisha's dead body. Brown meticulously planned his attack. He purchased cleaning supplies and a large suitcase days before the crime. On December 11, 2020, he stabbed Nitisha multiple times in their apartment. He then placed her body in the suitcase and kept it hidden for several days. But Brown's actions didn't stop there. He purchased a stroller and used it to transport the suitcase containing Nitisha's body through the city. Surveillance cameras captured him pushing the stroller before finally dumping her remains into the river. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, receipts for the cleaning supplies, and the recovered suitcase. When police found the suitcase, they made a grim discovery.
Later, Nilo's stroller was found in the water. A security guard who works in the area found the body.
Cincinnati 911, what is the address of your emergency?
I found a dead body.
Where at?
I'm at the corner of Pete Rose Way.
Brown's arrest came quickly. The investigation revealed a clear timeline and motive. He believed Nitisha killed his baby because she had a miscarriage, fueling his rage. During the motion hearing for Damian Brown, someone else was in court that day. It was the father of the toddler that he had murdered alongside Nitisha Lattimore.
This video here as a court hearing turns violent today. The man accused of stabbing a mother to death and throwing her toddler in the Ohio River was attacked by that toddler's father. Damian Brown was in court for a motions hearing today. A judge allowed the use of Brown's taped confessions to the killings of Nilo and Nitisha Lattimore as evidence.
And just as the session was wrapping up, all hell let loose.
But as those proceedings were wrapping up, Nilo's father, Antonio Hughes, came up behind the defendant and then punched him repeatedly. That's what you're looking at right there. Two deputies wrestled Hughes to the ground. He was still struggling as backup arrived to take him out of the courtroom.
At first, Hughes, Nilo's grieving father, sat quietly at the back of the court. As the matter was coming to a conclusion, he dashed forward and unleashed his fury on his child's killer. The deputies tried to calm Hughes down. The lawyers even joined in.
Calm down. Stop. Stop. Are you okay?
But Hughes was not done.
Chill out, dude. Take a minute.
And the deputies had to act quickly to restore order.
Come with me. All right?
The ensuing trial was swift, even though Brown was nonchalant.
Engaged.
Do you still wish to enter a plea to count 1, aggravated murder, and count 2, aggravated murder?
Yeah.
I just need to hear you say it one more time. What is your plea to those charges?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
What's your plea?
Damian Brown received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. But what happens when a mother's grief turns to rage and the culprit's family is unrepentant? This is Frank DeLeon Jr., who was charged with murder in Houston, Texas. On January 11th, 2022, 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez was shot 22 times while walking her dog near her home in southwest Houston. DeLeon, then 17, had lured her to a field after she discovered he was seeing another girl. The evidence, phone records, surveillance video, and ballistics quickly pointed to DeLeon. DeLeon's arrest came just days after the murder. Police pieced together a timeline showing how he contacted Diamond, arranged to meet in the field, and then shot her when she confronted him about his infidelity. The investigation revealed a pattern of controlling behavior and jealousy that culminated in this brutal act. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. DeLeon, now 19, agreed to plead guilty to murder in exchange for a 45-year sentence, a deal that required him to serve at least half before becoming eligible for parole. This plea avoided a potentially lengthy and painful trial for Diamond's family, but the courtroom drama was far from over. During sentencing, emotions boiled over. Diamond's mother, Anna Machado, took the witness stand for her victim impact statement. She finished her powerful testimony, and that was when she lost it. But just before she reached DeLeon, And that was when all hell let loose. First, Diamond's mother could not control her emotions after her speech. She rushed towards DeLeon, but was intercepted by a bailiff. However, another family member, Diamond's uncle, rushed toward DeLeon. Court officers scrambled to restrain him as the tension peaked. As they subdued the uncle, DeLeon's mother entered the fray, physically confronting Diamond's mother in a chaotic scene. Bailiffs moved quickly to separate warring family members. The courtroom erupted into chaos as grief and anger boiled over. The weight of Diamond's death finally cracked the carefully maintained decorum of the legal process. After order was restored, DeLeon sat stone-faced as the judge formally accepted his guilty plea and handed down the 45-year sentence. He would spend decades in prison for his crime, but the pain in the courtroom made it clear that justice was only part of the story. Later, Diamond's mother addressed reporters outside the courtroom.
I just want to move forward. And whatever happened, it was wrong of us. And I apologize for that. Apologize to the judge. Apologize to them. I've been fighting for justice. And today, finally, my daughter has her justice.
After the sentencing, Diamond's mother faced the prospect of a life without her daughter.
It's not a life that I have to watch my back, that I can't go nowhere. Because we're scared.
And they're ready to heal.
I just want peace. That's all I want.
But what happens in the next courtroom where there is a grieving family, enraged, and culprits that feel nothing? This is Tobrias Robinson, who was charged with second-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, and aggravated battery in Wichita, Kansas.
I'm not saying that we innocent, but you know what I'm saying? I hate him, and I hope something bad happens when he's there.
In 2022, Robinson, then just 16, shot and killed 14-year-old Trenjevius Hutton at Town East Mall in Wichita. The incident stemmed from a dispute that escalated into deadly violence. Multiple witnesses confirmed Robinson's involvement, and security footage placed him at the scene. The evidence against Robinson was clear. Surveillance cameras captured the moments leading up to the shooting, and eyewitnesses later identified him. Police swiftly arrested Robinson, who was tried as an adult given the seriousness of the charges. Robinson eventually pled no contest to all charges. The sentencing hearing, originally scheduled for September, was delayed when he attempted to withdraw his plea, but failed to follow through with the process properly. But no one could have anticipated what would happen during the rescheduled sentencing hearing. First, Hutton's mother pleaded with the judge to give Robinson the maximum possible sentence.
I'm not saying that we innocent, but you know what I'm saying? I hate him, and I hope something bad happens when he's there. I hate him. And I think that you should consider, you should give him the max that you can, because evidently he don't care.
But that was not all. Tensions in the courtroom reached a boiling point when she wouldn't stop.
I hate you, and I hope your die and just.
An argument between members of the victim's family and Robinson's family quickly escalated, and both the judge and the bailiff had to intervene.
The judge was asking how you guys go. Nobody.
2 people removed at the judge's request.
Get up, bro. Come here, bro.
Go that.
Tell y'all. Yeah, you was a.
Suddenly, chaos erupted.
Punches still flying as the fight grows even bigger, moving into the aisle. Until finally, deputies restore order.
Deputies rushed to intervene, but it was too late to prevent violence. One of the victim's family members turned back and punched a member of Robinson's family as they were being escorted out. Multiple punches were thrown, and both families became embroiled in a brawl. A moment that was supposed to deliver justice descended into chaos.
2 people removed at the judge's request.
Get up, bro. Come here, bro.
Go that.
Tell y'all. Yeah, you was a.
But not before fists started flying.
Deputies finally succeeded in separating the fighting families and quickly restored order. Both parties were thrown out of the courtroom before the final sentence was even given. Investigators reviewed security footage to determine if additional charges should be filed against those involved in the brawl before Robinson was sentenced to 255 months in prison. But as intense as this incident was, what happens when the defendant has to face down boiling rage from a grieving family? This is Jason Stevens, a 23-year-old man facing charges for armed robbery and the kidnapping and murder of a toddler in Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville authorities responded to a report of a home invasion that day in 1997. The invasion ended with the abduction of 3-year-old Robert Sparrow III. Reports say that Jason and others had broken into the home that day to steal money and some weed before Jason took the 3-year-old for insurance. After the authorities were alerted of the incident, the search for Robert Sparrow III began, and just days later, the child's body was discovered in the trunk of an abandoned stolen vehicle. Inside the packed courtroom, the family members of the victim sat tense and silent, with tension just waiting to burst. During recess, as Stevens stood to sign some court documents, they finally saw a chance.
Their anger boils over.
Deputies finally managed to pull Jason from the pile and have him removed from the room. They also placed the victim's father and one other relative in handcuffs before putting the rest of the family out of the courtroom.
The little boy's godfather is also hauled away. The murderer is eventually led out of the courtroom. And so is the family.
Despite the interruption, the trial resumed days later. Stevens was found guilty on all counts, and the court sentenced him to death by electric chair. Jason might have been lucky, but for this killer, he nearly lost his life in the hands of an embittered family who couldn't wait to make him pay. This is Victor Rivas, a 17-year-old currently charged with first-degree murder of Ethan Soto in San Antonio, Texas. In May 2022, police responded to a horrifying scene in Bexar County. There, they discovered the lifeless body of 15-year-old Ethan Soto, who had been shot multiple times and left bleeding out just outside his own home. Investigators say this wasn't a random act of violence. It was targeted, reportedly fueled by a grudge tied to drug-related tensions between local teens. In court, Rivas appeared for a pre-trial hearing. Right there in the courtroom were members of Ethan's family, watching the teen accused of murdering their son just feet away. At one point, witnesses claim Rivas made a hand gesture, which some took as a gang sign or dismissive wave, toward the grieving family. And this was all it took for the grieving family to lose it.
First at 5, family members of a murdered teenager accused of attacking the man on trial for it right in the middle of a Bexar County courtroom.
Security quickly rushed to intervene. But before Rivas could be rescued, he had already taken many hits. He sustained minor facial injuries and had to be quickly escorted out for his own safety. Ethan Soto's family couldn't hold back their anger at Victor Rivas, but in another courtroom, that same raw pain exploded more violently, where a father's grief exploded into fury over the loss of his child.
Father just lost it.
This is 37-year-old Ryan Burge. He is in court for charges of first-degree murder and manslaughter in Vancouver, Washington, for the brutal killing of a 5-year-old child who was left in his care. This wasn't Burge's first time in front of a judge. Years earlier, he had torched his own house for an insurance payout. Now he was back, and this time, for something even darker. This time, he was facing terrible charges. Doctors discovered that little Hartley, who he was babysitting, had suffered a massive stroke and severe brain swelling. These injuries, according to medical experts, could not have been self-inflicted. Investigators concluded that Burge had repeatedly beaten the girl and slammed her against a wall, causing fatal trauma.
What would cause somebody to harm such a sweet little girl?
In court, the tension was thick. Dozens of Hartley's friends and relatives filled the courtroom wearing matching Justice for Hartley t-shirts. It was the first time Burge had shown his face in public since the tragic incident, and his presence alone was enough to shake up the whole room.
This defendant...
And as the proceedings began, the air thickened with grief and rage. And then, someone snapped.
Just lost it.
But Peter, Hartley's father, could not reach the Burge before he was immediately intercepted by deputies.
Graduate from high school, or be married or anything. He took that from us. He took the joy we had with her away. I just hope the system works.
When the storm finally settled, justice had its say. Ryan Burge was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter and second-degree murder. The judge handed him down a 40-year prison sentence. While Peter couldn't get past security to reach his daughter's killer, this time, the next case is not just on the killer, but a mother who will stop at nothing to get her revenge. This is Klaus Grabowski, standing trial in court for abusing and strangling 7-year-old Anna Bachmeier. In 1980, Klaus Grabowski kidnapped 7-year-old Anna Bachmeier before he assaulted and strangled her. Klaus Grabowski was a 35-year-old man with a history of abusing children. Despite prior convictions, somehow Klaus was still allowed back into society and back around children. On May 5th, little Anna had a disagreement with her mother. Then she skipped school and never came home. Later, her body was found stuffed in a cardboard box by a canal. The authorities said Grabowski claimed he killed her out of fear that she would report him, and he would head back to prison. In court, Anna's mother, Marianne Bachmeier, watched as Grabowski took the stand each day and blamed her daughter. He told the court that Anna had seduced him, and as the trial proceeded, Marianne got angrier and angrier still, until, on the morning of March 6, 1981, Marianne Bachmeier entered the courtroom. Unknown to everyone, inside her long coat was a .22 caliber Beretta. Once she stood in front of Klaus, she pulled the gun out and released the trigger several times. By the time the deputies rushed to restrain her, but the damage was already done. Klaus died right there in the courtroom from the gunshots. Consequently, Marianne was charged with manslaughter and unlawful possession of a firearm. She was sentenced to 6 years but served only 3 before quietly moving to Nigeria and later returning to Germany. Marianne's fury was so fierce it shook a nation, and years later, in another courtroom, a killer's cold smile in the face of a grieving father sparks chaos all over again. This is 39-year-old Michael Madison from Cleveland, Ohio. He was facing charges of multiple counts of aggravated murder of 3 women in 2023. The investigation began when a foul odor led police to a garage in East Cleveland, where the body of a young woman was discovered in a garbage bag. This one discovery would lead to the unraveling of a terrifying chain of events. Police soon uncovered 2 more decomposing bodies, 38-year-old Angela Deskins, 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely, and 18-year-old Sherelda Terry. These bodies were dumped in plastic bags near Madison's apartment. Inside his apartment, authorities found some frightening evidence: decomposition fluids that stained various parts of the home, maggots infested corners of the floor, and a pungent stench that clung to the air.
Evidence of decomposition fluid in several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid.
In court, Madison sat stone-faced as the prosecution painted a graphic picture for the jury.
Same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies. To avoid detection from his crimes, he tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head.
The verdict was quick: guilty. But right before sentencing, the father of the victim, Terry, stood to deliver a victim impact statement, overcome with grief and fury as he addressed the man who took his daughter's life.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown. He's touched our families, taken my child.
He turned around to look Madison in the eye, and Madison, who was nearly off camera, smiled at him. This was too much for Terry. He lost it. Terry was quickly restrained before he could do damage and escorted from the courtroom. Not long after, Judge Nancy McDonnell addressed the court. Her voice was firm as she recounted the horror of Madison's crimes.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings.
And right after, she delivered the final blow. Madison was to pay the ultimate price for his crimes.
It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Shealy.
Madison wasn't the only one to face a grieving father's fury. In another courtroom, another child was dead, this time at the hands of her own mother and her boyfriend. When he met them in court, he let his fist do the talking. This is Clifford Thomas and Jasmine Gordon, a couple in Detroit, Michigan. They were in court on charges relating to the death of a 3-year-old, Jamila, Jasmine's daughter, with a former partner. In September of 2014, emergency services responded to a distress call in Detroit. Reports say Thomas had been babysitting Gordon's daughter, Jamila, when the toddler suddenly became unresponsive. She was rushed to the hospital, but it was already too late. Doctors pronounced Jamila dead on arrival. However, that was not all. The doctors would discover that Jamila's tiny body was covered in injuries, many at different stages of healing, from deep bruises, blunt force trauma to the head, and hemorrhaging between her scalp and skull. All were clear signs of prolonged abuse. The doctors immediately alerted the authorities. Police arrested both Thomas and Gordon, and the two were charged with involuntary manslaughter. Gordon also faced first-degree child abuse.
This child had over 50 injuries, and they were at various stages of healing. He indicated that this child had several impacts all over her head. In fact, there was hemorrhaging between the scalp and the bones of this child.
The trial was emotional, but things didn't get heated until sentencing.
She made a bad choice, a real bad choice, and to let this stranger babysit her kids, because that man was a total stranger.
Because right inside the courtroom was Jamila's biological father, Dwayne Smith, grieving the death of his child, who was also waiting his turn to give the impact statement, and when he stood, he just couldn't take it. Thomas himself actually tried to swing back, but deputies were quick to jump in. After order was restored, the judge continued with the sentencing, but not before issuing a warning.
There will be no outbursts in the courtroom. If there are any, you will be removed from the courtroom.
In the end, Thomas was sentenced to 57 months to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and 2 years for resisting arrest. As for Jasmine, she makes one last plea to the judge before her sentencing.
To be placed in jail right now after kissing my daughter for the last time is something I would have wished I stayed in himself. I was not innocent. I was never forgive anybody. Never.
But those tears didn't seem to have any effect on the judge, who handed her a 7 to 15-year term for involuntary manslaughter and 14 to 25 years for first-degree child abuse. Dwayne might have gotten justice after all, but for this grieving relative, these few seconds of rage in the courtroom felt like the only justice he would ever get. This is Quinn Bowes, an Indiana father who was convicted for the brutal killing of his own son. It was a crime that sparked outrage not just in the courtroom, but within his own family. It all started in May 2018 when Bowes was arrested after the suspicious death of his young son inside their shared apartment. Bowes' report was that the child had simply fallen off the couch while he was asleep and hit his head on a nearby table. But from the beginning, something about Bowes' story didn't sit right with the doctors, and when they examined the child's body, they soon discovered that the truth was far darker. An autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the head, injuries that experts confirmed were inconsistent with a simple fall and far more consistent with a violent assault. That discovery, together with other revelations, turned what Bowes painted as a tragic accident into what prosecutors described in court as a deliberate act of rage and abuse. He was promptly charged with aggravated battery, neglect of a dependent, and domestic battery resulting in the death of a minor. In court, Bowes pled guilty to the charges and showed little to no emotion as the verdict was read. The judge handed down a 20-year prison sentence, followed by 5 years of probation, and ordered him to pay for his son's funeral expenses. But there was one person in the gallery that day who was not satisfied with the sentencing, and as Quinn Bowes was being led out in handcuffs, he found his moment to strike. For a moment, it looked like he might get a few more hits in, but he was tackled to the ground by the deputies while others quickly got Bowes away from his flailing fists. The attacker was Jeremiah Hartley, the uncle of the child Bose was convicted of killing. The grieving Jeremiah didn't get the final say. He was held in contempt of court. He stood before the same judge who sentenced Bose and received 179 days in jail for his outburst. On top of that, he was slapped with misdemeanor battery charges filed by the state of Indiana. While Hartley single-handedly attacked his nephew's killer, what happens when a crime is so savage, so gut-wrenching, a complete stranger is driven to take revenge? This is Davin Jamari Motswain, a California man charged with killing 9-month-old baby Darius King Grigsby. In November 2022, in Merced, California, a young mother, Ayala, was out on a walk with her 9-month-old baby boy when a gunshot ended the life of her child. The bullet tore through her baby's chest. Panicked and shaking, Ayala ran to the nearest McDonald's for help. However, by the time she got there, it was already too late. Her son was gone. What made it worse was that the alleged shooter, Devin Motswain, wasn't some random gang member she'd never seen before. He was a lifelong friend.
I want him to be crying on his knees, like, sorry, like crawling to me type stuff, like, I'm sorry I did that. Like, I want to see him suffer.
She was so traumatized that she couldn't even bring herself to attend the courtroom hearings in person. But she needn't worry, because while she was grieving, someone else was fuming on her behalf. Someone that took the case personally. In the courtroom, another inmate, James Clay McRae, who was also facing murder charges himself, decided to handle things his own way. With no warning at all, he acted. By the time Devin registered that he was being attacked, and before he could defend himself, it was already over, and McRae had already been subdued and put in handcuffs by one of the deputies.
While an officer puts the attacker in handcuffs, Motswain was still putting the pieces together.
Disoriented, dazed, and probably wondering what hit him, Devin still met more outside the courtroom because Ayala had a message waiting for him.
I'm gonna come at you and get beat up every time. It's just, all I gotta say is be ready for what's coming for you, boy. Like, a lot's gonna come your way and you're gonna be hurt, like damaged real bad.
As of now, Motswain has pleaded guilty to manslaughter, but his official sentence is still pending. And while Ayala avoided the courtroom out of sheer heartbreak, this family didn't wait for the court to hand justice. They took it straight to the killers. Andre Fisher and his nephew Derek Cummings were in court awaiting sentencing after they were convicted of the murder of Shelton Lucas Jr. On February 15, 1994, Shelton Lucas Jr. and his mother, Charlotte Lucas, were sleeping on a couch when 35 bullets were fired into their Washington Estates drive home. One bullet fatally struck Lucas in the head. Shelton was rushed to the hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. He was only 5. In court, when given an opportunity to address the court, the victim's grandmother held up a picture of the dead child, reminding the family of the tragedy that had befallen the family once again.
See where they put him, what they did to him.
And this was when the victim's father lost it. Deputies immediately rose to restrain him, but relatives of the victim immediately joined in the fight. It was a tough struggle for the deputies to keep the killers from bodily harm without being injured themselves. Eventually, the judge cleared the room and postponed the sentencing hearing. But that was not all. The outburst of anger had cost Lucas Sr., Carlin Johnson, and Charles Johnson their freedom. The judge held them all in contempt of court and sentenced Lucas Sr. to 30 days in jail and the Johnson brothers to 15 days. As for the killers, they were handed a life sentence.